Chapter 1. The Howl on the Rooftop. The North Pole was a symphony of orchestrated chaos. Billions of presents flowed through the vast, gift-wrapped arteries of Santa's workshop, guided by the tireless hands of elves. Outside, the aurora borealis danced like a celestial curtain call, bathing the snow in hues of emerald and violet. It was Christmas Eve, the zenith of a year, a night powered by pure, unadulterated joy. Deep within the core of the earth, however, a different energy was coalescing. For centuries, Santa's naughty list had been more than a disciplinary tool. It was a psychic capacitor. It collected the simmering resentment, the petty cruelties, the volcanic rages of children who felt wronged, forgotten, or unjustly punished. This year, the list was longer, the hatred more potent. It had reached a critical mass. The raw, negative psychic energy, untethered and seeking form, found a vessel in the discarded remnants of a failed military satellite that had crashed into the polar ice decades ago. Metal fused with malice, circuits with spite. It began to build itself, a nightmare of chrome and fury, powered by the very essence of spoiled brats. Santa Claus, his belly shaking with a hearty laugh, checked his list one last time. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. The 8 reindeers snorted and pawed at the snow, their harnesses jingling with anticipation. But there was a tremor in the air, a dissonant note in the joyful symphony. The aurora flickered violently in the wind, usually a playful companion, carried a low, guttural growl. "What was that?" Mrs. Claus asked, looking up from a thermos of cocoa she was handing him. Santa's smile faltered. "Just the wind, dear. A bit blustery tonight." He climbed into the sleigh, his ancient body moving with a surprising agility. He patted each reindeer on the flank, his touch a familiar comfort. Rudolph, at the lead, nudged his gloved hand with his nose, his red nose glowing brightly. "Easy there, boy," Santa murmured. "Big night ahead." As the sleigh lifted into the air, a shadow detached itself from the polar ice cap below. It moved with impossible speed, a blur of black metal and sinew that kept pace with him effortlessly. It was a 7-foot-tall monstrosity, the shape of a wolf but forged from steel and black carbon fiber. One eye was a pulsating red orb, a digital lens that scanned with thermal precision. The other was a maelstrom of raw, crackling energy. Its muzzle was a hybrid of flesh and metal, and from its paws extended claws of polished, razor-sharp adamantium, humming with a faint blue energy. It was a cyborg werewolf, the physical manifestation of the naughty list's hatred. Its target was locked, the sleigh, a beacon of warmth and life in the frozen sky. The first attack came without warning. A sonic boom shattered the night as the creature launched itself from an iceberg, covering a mile in seconds. It slammed into the side of the sleigh, the impact groaning through the ancient wood. Santa was thrown against the side, his sack of presents spilling into the frigid air. "Hold on," he roared, grabbing the reins. The reindeer panicked, their formation breaking. The cyborg werewolf clung to the sleigh's runner, its cyber claws screeching against the metal. It fixed its glowing red eye on the nearest reindeer. Dancer, beautiful and graceful, looked back in terror. The creature's claw shot out, not a swipe, but a precise, surgical strike. It sliced through the leather harness and Dancer's chest in one clean, horrific motion. She didn't even have time to scream. She simply vanished from the traces, falling into the darkness below. A collective cry of horror went up from the remaining team. Santa's face, usually a picture of jolly benevolence, hardened into a mask of cold fury. He saw the creature's other eye, the one made of pure energy, begin to glow. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, what it was. Heat vision. "Veer off. Into the clouds," he yelled, yanking the reins. The sleigh banked hard, but it was too late for Prancer. A searing beam of crimson energy lanced from the werewolf's eye, striking the reindeer in the flank. Prancer's body convulsed, his fur and flesh instantly incinerated, leaving a charred, skeletal silhouette that plummeted from the sky. The smell of burnt hair and ozone filled Santa's nostrils. This wasn't a random monster. This was an assassin, and it was hunting them. Chapter 2. The Carnage in the Clouds. The sleigh became a desperate, weaving target in the moonlit clouds. Santa, a master pilot, pushed the reindeer to their limits, but the cyborg werewolf was faster, more agile. It was a predator toying with its prey, its attacks deliberate and cruel. It leaped from a sleigh, landing on the back of Vixen. The reindeer bucked and screamed, but the creature's metallic limbs clamped on like vice. With a powerful wrench of its body, it snapped Vixen's spine, the sound echoing even over the howling wind. It discarded the body like a broken toy and launched itself again, this time targeting Comet and Cupid, who flew side by side. Its cyber claws became a blur of motion, a whirlwind of sharpened steel. It flew between them, its claws extended, slashing through their throats in a single, devastating pass. 2 more reindeer fell, their lifeblood spraying across the sleigh's runners, freezing instantly in the bitter cold. Santa was raging now. He grabbed his emergency sack, a smaller bag containing tools, a first aid kit, and his most trusted companion, a heavy, single-bit firewood axe. The handle was worn smooth from centuries of use, the steel head honed to a razor's edge. He'd used it to clear fallen trees in remote forest, to defend his workshop from polar bears, but never in all his long years had he imagined he would wield it in aerial combat. "Hold steady, Donner." "Blitzen," he commanded, his voice a low growl. The cyborg werewolf landed back on the sleigh, its metal feet denting the wood. It stalked towards him, its lips pulled back in a metallic snarl, revealing a mesh of wires and sharpened teeth. Its heat vision flickered, targeting the 2 remaining reindeer. "Not another one, you metal-hearted bastard," Santa bellowed. He swung the axe with the strength of a man who felled oaks for a living. The werewolf was fast, but it wasn't expecting the raw, primal ferocity of the attack. It dodged, but the axe blade glanced off its shoulder, sending a shower of sparks and a screech of tortured metal. A gash appeared in the carbon fiber plating, revealing a mess of pulsating wires and synthetic muscle fibers. The creature roared, a sound of grinding gears and amplified fury. It retaliated with a claw swipe that Santa barely parried with the axe handle. The force of the blow numbed his arms. The sleigh lurched violently and Donner, caught off guard, stumbled. The werewolf saw its chance. Its heat vision flared, and Donner's head exploded in a cloud of steam and gore. Blitzen, terrified and alone, bolted. The reindeer broke free from its harness, a desperate, suicidal plunge into the night. The cyborg werewolf watched it go, then turned its full attention back to Santa. The sleigh, now unbalanced and with only 1 reindeer pulling, began to spiral downwards. Santa knew he was out of time. He cut the remaining harness with a single chop of his axe. "Go, Rudolph. Save yourself." Rudolph, his red nose blinking erratically, looked at Santa with terrified, pleading eyes. But he understood. With a final mournful cry, he peeled away, a single point of red light disappearing into the blizzard. The sleigh crashed into the snow-covered expanse of Siberia, the impact throwing Santa clear. He landed in a deep drift, his axe still clutched in his hand. He rose slowly, his body aching, his heart a shattered vessel of grief. He was alone. The cyborg werewolf landed 100 yards away, its red eye glowing like a malevolent star. The hunt was not over. It had only moved to its final stage. Chapter 3. A Friend in Frost. Rudolph flew blindly, his grief a physical weight on his back. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to get away from the monster, away from the horrifying memory of his friends falling from the sky. He flew for hours, the red light of his nose a tear-streaked beacon in the darkness, until he sensed a familiar, comforting presence. Below him, in a small village blanketed in snow, was a jolly snow-capped figure with a corncob pipe, a button nose, and 2 eyes made out of coal. Frosty the Snowman had been helping a local family with their snowman, his magic allowing him to exist far from the winter wonderlands he usually called home. He looked up as Rudolph descended, his cheerful expression turning to one of concern at the sight of the distraught reindeer. Rudolph landed heavily, his legs trembling, and tried to communicate the horror he had witnessed through a series of frantic snorts, nudges, and terrified whinnies. He pointed his nose back in the direction he had come, his light blinking rapidly. Frosty, though a simple soul made of snow, understood the language of fear and friendship. He placed a stick arm on Rudolph's back. "Whoa there, little fella. Something's got your antlers in a twist. Big trouble?" Rudolph nodded vigorously, his red glow intensifying. "Well now," Frosty said, his voice a deep, rumbling baritone. "Can't let a friend face big trouble alone. Hop on. Well, you know what I mean. Let's go." With a magical effort, Frosty began to glide across the snow, his round body moving with surprising speed. Rudolph trotted alongside him, his nose a guiding light as they raced back towards the crash site. They found the wreckage of the sleigh, half buried in the snow. Santa was nowhere to be seen, but the cyborg werewolf was there, its head cocked, sniffing the air. It was tracking him. "We have to distract it," Frosty whispered. Before Rudolph could protest, Frosty scooped up a large snowball and hurled it with all his might. It splat against the werewolf's metallic back. The creature slowly turned, its red eye fixing on the impossible sight of a walking, talking snowman and a reindeer with a glowing nose. It let out a confused, mechanical snarl. "Hey, tin pelt," Frosty yelled, waving his stick arms. "Your mother was a Roomba." The insult, utterly nonsensical, was enough. The cyborg werewolf abandoned its trail and charged, its claws extended. Frosty stood his ground, a brave, foolish smile on his face. "Get ready to meet your melter, you oversized can opener." The creature was on him in seconds. It swiped a claw, not to kill but to dissect. It sliced through Frosty's midsection, and the snowman didn't fall. He simply came apart. His top half slid off his bottom half, his head rolling in the snow. His corncob pipe clattered to the ground. The magic that held him together dissipated in a puff of glittering cold, leaving only a pile of ordinary snow and a few lumps of coal. Rudolph let out a scream of pure anguish. The cyborg werewolf turned its attention to him, its heat, vision flaring. But Rudolph, fueled by rage and sorrow, was a fraction too fast. He dove behind a large ice outcropping as the beams seared past, melting a trench in the snow. He was the last one, the only witness left. Chapter 4. The Sleighing and the Stream. Leo, a 16-year-old on holiday with his family, was bored out of his mind. He was supposed to be on a spiritual retreat to appreciate the Siberian wilderness, but all he could think about was the signal strength. Miraculously, he'd found 1 bar of 5G, hiding in his family's rented cabin. He was scrolling through social media when he heard the crash. Grabbing his phone, he'd run outside, his curiosity overpowering his fear. He saw the sleigh, the creature, and then, impossibly, a snowman and a reindeer. He ducked behind a snow-covered rock, his heart pounding and hit record. His hands shook as he framed the shot. This was insane. This was viral. The cyborg werewolf, having dispatched Frosty, was now methodically searching for Rudolph. It was then that Santa emerged from the tree-line. He was no longer the jolly old elf. His red suit was torn and stained with blood and grime. His face was a mask of grim determination, his eyes burning with a cold fire. In his hand he held his firewood axe. "Get away from him." Santa's voice was low, gravelly, and carried an authority that silenced the wind. The cyborg werewolf turned, its red eye focusing on the new threat. It recognized the primary target. The hunt was back on. They charged each other. This was no longer a chase, it was a death match. Santa was a whirlwind of ancient power. He ducked under a claw swipe, his axe biting deep into the creature's leg. The werewolf howled, a sound of feedback and pain, and kicked Santa, sending him flying into a tree. The old would groan but held. Santa was back on his feet in an instant. He was bleeding from a gash on his forehead, but he seemed not to notice. He feinted left, then right, his movements surprisingly fluid. He wasn't just strong. He was a warrior who had spent centuries defending the light. The werewolf's heat vision lanced out, but Santa dropped behind a boulder, the beam melting the rock into slag. He popped up and threw his axe. It spun through the air, a blur of shining steel, and buried itself in the werewolf's shoulder, pinning its arm to its torso. The creature thrashed, trying to dislodge the weapon. Santa used the opening. He tackled the werewolf, his sheer bulk driving it to the ground. They rolled in the snow, a flurry of red, white, and black. Santa punched the creature's metal face, his knuckles splitting. But he didn't stop. He was fueled by the memory of every fallen reindeer, every child's laugh that was now threatened. The werewolf, with a burst of hydraulic power, threw him off. It ripped the axe from his shoulder and tossed it aside. Its claws shot out, aiming for Santa's heart. But Santa was ready. He caught the creature's wrist, his grip like iron. For a moment, they were locked in a struggle of pure strength. "You are made of hate," Santa grunted, his face inches from the creature's snarling maw. "But I am made of love, and love is heavier." With a final, titanic heave, Santa twisted the werewolf's arm. There was a horrendous sound of grinding metal and snapping wires. He tore the cybernetic limb clean from its socket. Black, viscous fluid sprayed across the snow. The cyborg werewolf shrieked, a sound of pure electronic agony. It staggered back, its remaining claw swiping wildly. Santa dodged, scooped up his axe, and charged. He swung with all his might, a horizontal arc that connected with the creature's neck. The axe, honed by dwarven magic and centuries of use, sliced through the metal and synthetic sinew. There was a shower of sparks, a final, gurgling electronic curse, and then silence. The cyborg werewolf's head, one glowing eye and one energy-filled socket, rolled into a snowdrift. The massive body stood for a second, then toppled over, crashing onto the frozen ground. Santa stood over the corpse, his chest heaving, blood dripping from his wounds onto the pristine snow. He had won, but the cost was devastating. He looked around at the empty sky, at the pile of snow that was once frosty. He fell to his knees, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. Leo, still recording, zoomed in on Santa's face. It wasn't the face of a myth. It was the face of a hero, a grieving, triumphant, bloody hero. With trembling fingers, he hit live and posted the video to every platform he could think of. The title is simple: Santa is real, and he just saved Christmas. The world watched. They saw the monster, the bravery, the sacrifice, and the brutal, bloody victory. They saw the truth. And in living rooms across the globe, children and parents alike looked up at the sky, not with a belief in a jolly old elf, but with a newfound, profound respect for the warrior who fought for them. Santa Claus, the legend, was real, and tonight he had become a martyr. But as he slowly rose to his feet, his axe in hand, and looked towards the distant horizon, the world knew the story wasn't over. It had just begun.